They told you it was a myth, a leftover of evolution, an atrophied gland buried in the center of your brain with no real function beyond regulating melatonin. But they were lying. Because your pineal gland is not just a biological switch, it's a spiritual gateway, a bridge between dimensions, and it has been systematically shut down by design. Before you could speak, you were already being disconnected. Fluoride in your water, heavy metals in your food, synthetic frequencies in your environment, and worst of all, programming that ridicules anything beyond the physical. It wasn't just your body they were numbing, it was your vision. The ancients weren't confused, they weren't primitive. They called this inner organ the seat of the soul for a reason. In Egypt, the Eye of Horus wasn't just a symbol, it was an anatomical map. In Hindu traditions, the third eye is the Ajna chakra, command center of inner knowing. In mystical Christianity, it was the single eye through which the body becomes full of light. Different words, same truth. This gland is your antenna to the unseen. But what happens when that antenna is calcified? What happens when the signal is jammed, rerouted, blocked? You forget. You forget how to feel energy. You forget how to trust your intuition. You forget how to see beyond the veil. And that forgetting becomes your normal. You start living from logic alone. You confuse knowledge with wisdom. You rely on external validation instead of inner sight. But that's not how you were designed. The pineal gland is photosensitive. It responds to light, but not just physical light, spiritual light. DMT, the so-called spirit molecule, is produced here in small amounts, and many believe it plays a role not just in dreams, but in visions, near-death experiences, and moments of transcendence. That's not woo, that's neurology. Yet despite this, most people never feel the pulse of that inner world. Why? Because it's been dulled by chemicals, by overstimulation, by disbelief. You were born with a built-in compass to navigate more than just the material realm. You were meant to see without eyes. But what would happen if you remembered that? What would happen if enough people activated that dormant sense? Not through substances, but through alignment? Systems would fall, because humans who can perceive truth for themselves don't need narratives. They don't need filters. They don't need permission. And that's exactly what they fear. They don't fear your opinions, they fear your perception. To understand why they've worked so hard to suppress your pineal gland, you have to look beyond the biology, into the systemic design of disconnection. This isn't just about a gland, it's about a gateway. Because when your third eye is active, you don't just see differently, you exist differently. You sense energy in people before they speak. You feel when something is off before facts reveal it. You see patterns in chaos. You dream vividly. You receive insight faster than logic can explain. Now imagine a world full of people like that. People who can't be manipulated by fear, marketing, or false leadership. People who trust their inner voice more than institutional narratives. People who see through the world, not just at it. That world would be ungovernable by the systems currently in power. And that's why your inner sight had to be turned off, slowly, chemically, culturally. Let's start with the obvious: fluoride. The pineal gland is the only part of the brain not protected by the blood-brain barrier. That makes it vulnerable. And guess what substance has been shown to accumulate there? Fluoride. It calcifies the gland, literally hardening it, like turning a lens to stone. The research isn't fringe, it's available, but you'll never hear it echoed by major institutions. Why? Because calcification isn't a side effect, it's the objective. Add to that the overstimulation of screens, constant flicker rates, blue light, hyperreactive content. Your eyes are open all day, but your vision is shut. Then there's the ridicule. Any mention of the third eye is dismissed as pseudo-spiritual fluff, or worse, mental instability. People laugh at inner knowing because they've forgotten what it feels like. That was no accident. The media has programmed you to believe in 5 senses, no more. School systems trained you to prioritize facts over experience. Religious institutions warned you against mystical insight unless it came from authorized sources. All of it was part of the same plan. Cut the signal, control the narrative, because if the third eye reawakens in enough people, the game ends. It's not just about accessing visions or spiritual states. It's about restoring sovereignty of perception. And perception is the gateway to everything. Your beliefs are shaped by what you perceive. Your decisions are driven by what you intuit. Your identity is formed by what you see as real. Control perception, and you control the person. That's why the pineal gland matters so much, more than you've ever been told, because your entire experience of reality is filtered through it, whether active or dormant. So if they distort that filter, they distort you. And the scary part? You won't even realize it's happened. You'll call it growing up. You'll call it being realistic. You'll call it maturity. But it's just blindness. Here's the paradox. Your third eye isn't actually closed. It's overwhelmed. It's drowning in interference. Think about it. Since the moment you wake up, you're bombarded with signals, notifications, noise, artificial light, shallow content, non-stop stimulation. Your nervous system is in survival mode. Your perception is locked in reaction, not reflection. And in that state, inner vision becomes impossible. Why? Because the third eye isn't activated by intensity. It awakens through subtlety. It needs stillness, silence, coherence. It needs your nervous system to calm enough for the deeper signal to rise. But no one teaches you that. Instead, you're pushed toward dopamine highs, spiritual shortcuts, flashy awakening content that overloads your mind without ever touching your soul. It's a trap disguised as truth. So let's get clear. Real activation isn't a product, it's a practice. And it begins not with adding more, but removing the noise. When you begin to detox your perception, your third eye responds. Limit screen time. Be deliberate with your inputs. Expose yourself to nature's rhythm, real light, real dark. Practice stillness, not as escape, but as tuning. Fast from unnecessary stimulation. Breathe deeply. Hold awareness behind your forehead. Feel what's always been there. It's not complicated, but it requires patience, discipline, presence, and once it starts to shift, you'll know. Because the world won't look the same. Colors feel sharper. Time stretches and compresses. Synchronicities increase. People's intentions become obvious, your dreams become cinematic, and your mind stops screaming long enough for truth to land. This isn't magic, this is alignment. It's what your system was built for, to navigate multiple layers of reality, not just one. You were made to perceive beyond the physical. You were made to sense timelines, futures, lies before they form. You were made to know, not guess. And when that knowing returns, so does your power. Because now, they can't fool you with spectacle. They can't gaslight you with noise. They can't distract you from your center. You don't just wake up, you see through. That's what they fear. Not resistance, not rebellion, but clarity. Because the clearer your inner vision, the harder it is to manipulate your outer world. If you're feeling the veil start to lift, subscribe and hit the bell. The algorithm won't offer you real vision. You have to ask for it. Because the suppression isn't just global, it's personal. And the moment you choose to see, the lie begins to crumble. The reawakening of the pineal gland isn't flashy. It's not dramatic. It's not a psychedelic blast of lights and voices. It's quiet, almost imperceptible at first. But make no mistake, it changes everything. When your third eye begins to reactivate, it doesn't just give you visions, it rewires the way you interpret reality. Suddenly, the things that used to grip you, fear, desire, confusion, addiction, begin to loosen, not because you fought them, but because you see through them. Your perception deepens. You catch subtle shifts in energy, You walk into a room and know who's lying, who's empty, who's holding something sacred. This is the return of energetic intelligence, and it starts affecting your life fast. Relationships shift. Some fall away. Those based on illusion or emotional dependency simply dissolve. Others deepen because you're no longer guessing what someone feels. You feel it. You begin to trust your gut without asking for second opinions. You lose interest in endless scrolling, small talk, drama. You stop chasing and start choosing. Your pineal gland, now decalcifying, begins to regulate not just melatonin and sleep cycles, but multi-dimensional awareness. The inner and outer worlds begin to align, and in that alignment, life stops feeling random. Patterns emerge, timelines sync. Events that once felt coincidental now feel scripted by your higher awareness. This is what the ancient seers and prophets trained for, not to predict the future, but to read the field, to interpret the unseen. And your body supports this. You may experience subtle pressure between your brows, vivid symbolic dreams, spontaneous clarity, heat or tingling in the crown or spine, a sense of being watched, but peacefully. These are not symptoms. They're signs that your inner circuitry is coming online. But here's the thing no one tells you. Once you see, you can't unsee. Once the veil lifts, you are responsible. Because insight without integrity becomes just another form of ego. That's why real pineal activation comes with grounding. You're not meant to float off into mystical highs. You're meant to bring that clarity down into your speech, your work, your decisions. You become the bridge between higher knowing and grounded action. And that's what truly threatens the system. Because a person who sees clearly and lives cleanly is immune to control. They don't need permission. They don't need approval. They walk in truth because they perceive truth. And that kind of human is dangerous, not because they fight, but because they can't be lied to anymore. Once your perception returns, so does your sovereignty. Because what is sovereignty, really? It's not about control. It's not about dominance. It's the ability to see clearly and respond with alignment, no matter what noise surrounds you. And that level of clarity? It's only possible when your third eye is awake and in service to your higher self. Let's be real. Most people are reacting to reality. They're not shaping it. Why? Because their vision has been hijacked, not just externally, but internally. They confuse emotion for intuition. They confuse fear for foresight. They chase safety instead of truth. But when your third eye activates, the chase ends. You're no longer driven by noise. You're tuned to signal. A signal that comes from beyond linear time, beyond logic, beyond the ego's grasp. You stop moving out of impulse and start moving from inner command. Your pineal gland becomes a beacon, not just receiving frequency, but radiating it. You walk into situations with knowing. You speak fewer words, but they land deeper. You attract synchronicities because your field is organized, coherent. You become less impressed and more discerning, because once you can truly see, your life gets very quiet. You don't need to argue. You don't need to prove. You just move. And here's where the power gets practical. Clarity isn't just spiritual, it's creative. You start shaping reality, not by hustling harder, but by aligning stronger. Your thoughts don't just pass by, they embed. Your intentions don't just float, they take root. Your energy isn't scattered, it's precise, and the world around you reflects that precision. This is the secret the ancients protected. That the unseen controls the seen, and your pineal gland is the interface, the gate between blueprint and manifestation, between signal and structure. That's why those in power built whole systems to disconnect you from it. Because if the masses reclaim their inner vision, they won't just rebel, they'll rewrite reality from the inside out. But here's the real key. You can't fake this. You can't pretend to be awake. Either your field is coherent or it's not. Either you're aligned or you're distorted. And the third eye doesn't care about your words. It reflects your state. So if you want to build a life based on truth, not trauma, your job isn't to search harder, it's to see cleaner. And when you do, you stop chasing the world. The world starts responding to your frequency. You've been taught that vision is passive, that you open your eyes and see what's there. But that's not how your third eye works. Your third eye doesn't just receive reality, it projects it. That's why it was never just about intuition, it was always about creation. When the pineal gland is fully active, you're no longer a spectator of life, you're a co-author. Your thoughts gain structure, your intentions ripple, your field imprints, and that's what they don't want you to know. Because a human being who understands that perception is creation is not just free, they're dangerous, not to people, not to society, but to illusions, to lies, to every system built on borrowed belief. That's why this knowledge was buried beneath religion, mocked by science, and drowned in distraction. Because if enough people open that eye, the illusion collapses. But here's the twist. The eye doesn't open just because you want it to. It opens when you're ready to see what's real, even if it breaks everything you thought you knew. And that's the price most aren't willing to pay. Because real sight shows you your own role in the distortion. It reveals where you gave your power away, where you chose safety over soul, where you looked away because truth felt heavy. But here's the gift. Once the eye opens, it watches with you. That part of you, call it soul, higher self, source, starts showing up in real time, in conversations, in dreams, in decisions. It doesn't yell, it doesn't push, it simply reveals. And now you have to choose. Will you act on what you see? Will you live what you know? Or will you close the eye again and pretend you never noticed? Because once you remember, you carry responsibility, not to be perfect, but to be awake. Awake enough to say no when it matters, to move when the signal comes, to trust when logic wavers. That's the life of a seer, not glamorous, not always easy, but free. And maybe that's why they tried so hard to make you forget, because once your perception belongs to you again, so does your future. So here's my question to you. If you truly trusted what your third eye was showing you right now, what would you stop tolerating? Let me know in the comments. Your answer might open someone else's eye, and if this unlocked something in you, you already know what to do. The next video is calling.